Putin initiates conscription to bolster military invasion as Ukraine mounts counteroffensive. Russia, President Vladimir Putin announced a partial mobilization in Russia, which will require citizens to join the war effort in Ukraine. It's a fully adequate to the threats we face, namely to protect our homeland, its sovereignty and territorial integrity, to ensure the security of our people and people in the liberated territories. We are talking about partial mobilization. That is, only citizens who are currently in the reserve will be subject to conscription. And above all, those who served in the armed forces have a certain military specialty and relevant experience. And he warns the West, threat to resort to nuclear weapons. This is not a bluff. Putin issued a warning after accusing Western countries of resorting to nuclear blackmail despite no NATO countries threatening to use nuclear weapons. To those who allow themselves such statements regarding Russia, I want to remind you, and he's only talking about one person, by the way, that our country also has various means of destruction. And for separate components and more modern than those of NATO countries, and when the territorial integrity of our country is threatened, to protect Russia and our people, we will certainly use all the means at our disposal. It's not a bluff. The threat comes as Russia's prospects in Ukraine are grim, with Putin's military losing thousands of square miles of territory to Ukrainian counteroffensive. And by the way, he's saying this. This is my idea with this. You know, we've talked about this before. What'd you say? I'll kick your ass. Say that again. Look what I'm going to do to you. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can get away with it once, twice, three. If you keep doing that, people are going to be like, dude,
bro, shut up.
Do something, right? Yeah. Okay. So now to flip that is people are moving out of Russia at a record-breaking rate. Mm-hmm. So earlier we were talking about, you're saying, tell me one other country that's getting the most people. I wanted to kind of talk about this. I said, let's just wrap up Mar-a-Lago conversation.
Germany?
They're leaving Russia.
No, but I'm saying they're going into Germany?
They're going all over the place, but they're just leaving Russia. They're worried, okay? Like when we lived in Iran, the war was going on, like, dude, this could get nuclear. Our families were just worried about the safety of the kids. So people were leaving. No matter where they get a chance to go to, they're just leaving. So he's in a very tough situation. So now you go and look at Pearl Harbor, and then what happened, FDR, and then Truman goes and calls it, and here, let's go do this and drop it. And hey, we saw what happened to, Hiroshima. Do you take his threat as a bluff, or do you take it as this guy's got his back so much against the wall right now that if there is a guy that would do it, it would be him?
I think he should be taken seriously, but I do believe that his own civil unrest within his own country is going to be his ultimate downfall, meaning his own people are turning on him and are going to continue to rise up. I think that's where NATO, and especially with the United States, having their allies work on the Russian population to expose him for being just who he is, a madman, I think eventually will back him down and eventually create his downfall. Now, with that being said, the reality is right now with him having the ability to push a button, unfortunately, Ukraine, there's not much to destroy there, right? I mean, it's basically a vast wasteland. I mean, he's destroyed basically the entire country. With respect to using nuclear weapons, my biggest concern, honestly, is not his ability to carry out that threat. My biggest concern to myself and to my family and to my fellow Americans is honestly, what would be the response if, God help us all, if he was to implement a nuclear attack? Because we all know what will happen if he does it, or we can anticipate what would happen. My biggest concern is, what's the response? Because once you light that fuse, we may be looking at a completely different world than we've ever known before.
You know the difference between the button in U.S. versus Russia? Have you seen that article?
No.
Okay, so in U.S., the button is controlled by who?
President.
One person.
Mm-hmm.
He can't push the button there. He needs multiple approvals in Russia. So Russia's situation is not like, what'd you say? Boom. That's U.S. That's not what it is in Russia. So that gives a little bit of comfort to say you have to convince 3 or 5 people, whatever the amount of people is, for them to say, we agree that it's time to push the button. So I think for the world that's a little bit worried, it's good that Russia's button to the nuclear bomb is a lot more regulated, believe it or not, as weird as it sounds, than the button in U.S. Now,
Do you remember what Tate had to say about this?
no.
You asked Tate this question. You said
Misunderstood man.
Exactly.
Putin,
You said
yeah.
you live in Romania, which is on the border of Ukraine war. You're seeing this happening. This is when we were in Madrid doing the interview with Tate, and obviously we didn't talk about Putin for an extended period of time throughout that interview. But basically, you brought up the term madman, and he goes, "I know that term gets thrown around a lot. Putin's a madman. He's a madman. He's crazy." And he goes, "No, I think he's actually a rational actor, but he is there to serve his country, Mother Russia. He's not worried about global agendas or poll numbers. He's there for one reason only, to take a term from your president, make Russia great again." So I don't think he's a bad man. I think he's a rational actor. I don't think he wants to blow up the world. I don't think he wants to do that. At the same time, what I do think he has is a massive ego, and I think he needs an off-ramp to save face. Right now, he's not winning this war in Ukraine. The EU, United States, is throwing billions of dollars to prop up Ukraine and fight Russia, and they're doing a good job of it. And I think if you're Putin, and if you're the world and you want a safe world, you want to give at least Putin an opportunity to not look weak and to save face, and give him an off ramp so he doesn't do anything illogical and he maintains the rational actor status.
My take is, though, his DNA, because of where he came from, is all about deception and killing and murdering. KGB.
Yeah.
And poisoning and
of course.
Doing things.
And accidentally jumping out of a window.
Doing the most barbaric things.
Of course.
I think that's his DNA. And look, madman is, someone who's crazy. I think he's very calculated.
No doubt.
No question. Very smart, very calculated. My fear is, because of his DNA, he does not have the ability to think beyond himself, meaning that, and just as Patrick said, there's a layer that insulates him from getting to that button. My concern would be he'll start knocking off those people and putting in people in their place to ultimately get to that button.
Who's a bigger egomaniac, Putin or Trump?
Well, look, you see Trump in front of the camera a lot more than you see Putin, that's for sure.
So
that may just be.
Well, and we're all assuming that this is a big nuclear weapon. He has targeted nuclear weapons. He can launch very small nuclear attacks and create mass devastation. And listen, I don't think he's a madman. I think he's very calculated. But we are pushing him and pushing him and pushing. Imagine how frustrated he has to be that he can't take over Ukraine because, like Adam said, we're sending 50, 60, 70, 80, $100 billion. What do you think he's going to do? It's no secret that we are fighting a proxy war against Russia on behalf of Ukraine. What do you expect him to do?
So what happens when you push a bully one too many times? What happens? The bully goes home, goes into his father's closet, gets out his assault rifle, puts it in his backpack, and comes to school the next day and say, okay, here's the great equalizer. And that's what we see in these mass shootings. And so be careful pushing Putin into that corner, because that's what's going to happen.
That's the key, though. That's not him being a madman. That's not him being crazy. That's our problem. We did this. We set this up. This is our fault.
This is why.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.